Good evening. Hello, hello. Welcome to the first Salisbury Forum of 2026. And it's going to be a lively forum, I can tell already, that's great. I'm Sarah Tennyson, I'm the president of the Salisbury Forum, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you all here tonight. It's our first forum. We're thrilled to have Jon Brunelle here as our speaker. And not only is it Jon's debut with the forum, but he is also bringing to us a topic that we have never before featured in our 20-year history of talks, which is magic, which feels like exactly what we need on this very cold winter's night here. So we're very excited about that. Before I introduce Jon properly, I would like to say a few thank yous. First of all, to our hosts here at Salisbury School and all of the people here who make that happen for us. Thank you. Thank you also to our donors and our sponsors, I know some of whom are sat here tonight. We are always grateful and appreciative of your ongoing support that allows us to put these events on. Thank you too to our board of volunteers, many of whom are here tonight, and you will see them in various places welcoming you in, and later on with the Q&A as well, so thanks to them. And finally, a big thank you for all of you for being here tonight. You are an audience without whom there would literally not be a forum, so thank you very much for being here. So to introduce tonight's speaker, Jon's pedigree as a magician in the 1970s and 80s took him to Hollywood's Magic Castle and winning first prize in a national close-up magic competition held by the Society of American Magicians. It's bad enough presenting in front of peers on a normal day, but to do that I think must be a whole other level of that. Later on in his career, Jon created satiric slideshow presentations that he performed in collaboration with New York's electronic music and video artists. Out of this work evolved a series of solo shows in which he would play a spokesperson and evangelist for heinous technologies, including his most popular show, Better Love Through Surveillance. And when I read that, I thought, maybe there's another topic for us here, but that's for the future. In between, he has worked as a commercial actor, a role-playing game designer, a hand model, an appraiser of collectible classical vinyl, a textbook contributor, a trade show spokesman, and a website manager of a major non-profit organisation. So please join me in welcoming Jon Brunelle to tonight's Salisbury Forum.
Thank you all very much. Before we begin, I'd like to say a few words about nanotechnology. You probably heard about the recent developments, mini drones, surveillance devices disguised as birds and insects, rumors of selective deployment by police and security agencies. And then there's the experimental. Injectable microbots to replace invasive surgery, tiny cameras that can be swallowed like vitamin pills, nanobots augmenting human organs and tissue. And then there's science fiction. Runaway nanobots that eat bad guys and civilians, and the occasional cute dog, destroying cities, laying waste to civilization. How much will remain just speculation? Well, I'm here today to explain how basic nanobot utility programming is available to us all through a government-funded outreach from the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. That's right, DARPA is going crowdsourcing around to develop a database of fresh ideas from ordinary citizens like you. Now, the basic nanobot homebrew kit comes with easy-to-follow directions. It's actually not much more difficult than setting up a new flat-screen television. Here's an example of my first try. Now, I limited robotic self-replication to just 200 units, which is not nearly enough to be seen without intense magnification, but more than enough for a trial run. So here we go. a live demonstration of a simple nanorobotic program task. Okay, come on, guys. Now, what did we just see? Well, if I were to put these objects under intense magnification, we would see the tiny robots gather around the pencil and points. And then they form sort of a chorus line and execute their task. Well, the first time I got this to work, I was really jazzed, so I had to move on to the next logical step, nanobot cloaking. I'm going to have a card selected. Let's see. This gentleman over here. Would you touch a card with a number on it? Great. 7 diamonds. All right, I'm going to give you a marking pen, and I'd like you to write your initials nice and big on the card. All right, that's good. All right, now we can see what the man has done here. Nice and big on the card. All right, I'm going to mix it into the deck. And like that, your card is in my pocket. It's good, huh? Well, I showed it to you. I'm just messing with you. Now, what did we just see? Nanobots programmed to manipulate a target object, in this case, the card you sign, and to camouflage it by matching the colors and tones of fabric and flesh. So, these fabulous little bastards pulled the card out of the deck, marched it up one arm across the chest, thumbing the other arm, and into the pocket. Well, I'll do it again. If I turn this card over and your initials are on it, will you give the little robots a round of applause? Thank you very much. That was an excerpt from a show I mounted in New York City about 10 years ago. At the time, I was writing a lot of satire about tech, supported by occasional bits of magic. But in fact, during the 1980s, I was a full-time professional magician. I performed at trade shows, at private parties. I performed in Japan. I published original sleight-of-hand routines in magicians' magazines. There's my 80s haircut on the cover. Now, to get a better idea of what would draw a young man to this kind of life, let's take a look at a little bit of history. Now, magic, that is the creation of illusions through sleight of hand and mechanical trickery, has been around for centuries. And practitioners always had the option to present themselves either as entertainers or genuine magicians. Now, in old Europe, the latter option was risky when witch hunting was popular. So during that era, more often you would see magicians performing at fairgrounds along with acrobats and jugglers, and there they could slip in the occasional Bible message to prove they were good Christians. Here's a great example from the era, the John the Baptist illusion, simulating a live beheading while the artist regales the audience with the biblical tale of the prophet John, Salome, and the dance of the 7 veils. Pay no attention to the man under the table, ladies and gentlemen. And during this era, you also see many depictions of magicians performing the cups and balls, one of the very oldest sleight of hand routines. In fact, the cups and balls were so frequently performed it began to be satirized. In this painting by Hieronymus Bosch, we see a man watching the magician perform with the cups while the magician's confederate in the audience steals the man's purse. This scene was inspired by a Flemish proverb which says that a man deceived by a conjurer soon will be parted from his money and ridiculed by children. And this is one of my very great favorites, the Fall of the Magician Hermogenes. The Latin at the bottom reads, Hence the saint obtained from God that the magician should be torn to pieces by demons. It's an excerpt from the life of St. James. Here in the center, we can see the magician being tormented. And check it out, the demons are learning the cups and balls. Now, before we go further, I think we should get to see a first-rate performance of the cups and balls. So I'm going to play a clip of an old friend of mine, Paul Gertner. And he stunned the magic community during the 1970s with a particular innovation that he brought to this classic routine.
Ladies and gentlemen, a classic illusion in the art of magic, the cups and balls. Now, it uses 3 cups and a little ball, if I can find that. The ball is placed underneath one of the 3 cups. I will mix them around. You have to guess where the ball is. But you see, there are 2 elements here. Number 1, green mat, green ball. That helps me switch it from cup to cup without you noticing it move. Number 2, the ball is soft. You can't hear it. So whenever I remove the ball from the cup, you're not sure if it's there or if it's already in my pocket, which it normally is. But you see, I am from Pittsburgh, and in Pittsburgh, of course, when I was a kid, I learned how to do this trick. I didn't know you were supposed to do the trick with a little sponge rubber ball like that. I started doing the trick with something I found in my dad's toolbox. He worked in the steel mills of Pittsburgh, and I found a steel ball bearing. So I would place the steel ball underneath the cup, and it added the element of sound. So when I moved the cups around, you could hear it. I would then shift them around and say to my mom and dad, "Where's the ball?" And the smarter of the 2 knew immediately. That was Mom. But it was underneath the cup that made the noise, and pretty soon I realized you can't fool anyone with a steel ball in a metal cup because of the element of sound, unless you can cause the sound in the ball to disappear. And to travel over here inside the ball. That's what it looked like the first time. I'll do that again. If you watch the ball, take a guess. Steve, which cup do you think it's under? Middle? Absolutely. No matter what you choose, you're a winner. 3 cups, 3 balls, now we're ready to start the trick. But if you watch the ball right here in my hand, whenever I give it a push, it goes right to the top, balanced on the edge. I'll do that again. This one goes right to the top of 2 cups. Again, balanced on the edge. However, I want you to know where the balls are. And since I've added the element of sound, I'm going to let you not only see them go under the cups, but if you listen, you'll actually hear. Ball number 1 under cup number 1. Ball number 2, that stays under cup number 2. And ball number 3 under cup number 3. And if I take 2 of them invisibly, I set them down, I give them a little tap, and now that's gone, because now they're all together. But you know, it is the end of this trick, and if we were doing this on the streets, this is where I'd win your money. This is where I'd win your money, by turning to the tallest guy in the room, and they do that so that everyone can look back and watch his eyeballs. And they say, "Sir, I'm going to let you win. I'm going to remove 1 ball from the game." And then they say, "Sir, I'm really going to let you win. I'll get rid of another ball." And they take a 2nd ball out of the game. And then they set the psychological hook. They say, "Sir, just for fun, how many balls under the middle?" Well, the minute they say just for fun, his ego takes over, and he decides to show the crowd he's very intelligent and he's on to the game, and he'll answer honestly 1. And immediately they say, "We have a winner." "Oh, that was just for fun." Bring out your wallet. Make your big bet next time. You're smart. You're on to this game. And what they do is they slip another ball under the cup. Let me explain. You see, they never take the ball out of the game. They never really put it in their pocket. What they do is they slip it under the cup. As they lift the cup up, it looks like it was there all the while. But if I really get rid of the ball, "Sir, just for fun, how many balls under the middle?"
1.
No, for you, I did all 3. But you know, you can't do this trick with just 3 balls. You need an extra one. In fact, there's an extra one right over here. And there's another extra one right over there. Now, they're both pretty big and they're both fairly heavy. But underneath the center cup is the biggest one of all, because no, that's not it. That's the biggest one. But I can't figure out where it comes from. Thank you.
Now, with the invention of the printing press, the secrets of magic began to be distributed more widely. The first magician's textbook in the English language is considered to be The Discovery of Witchcraft, published by Reginald Scott in 1584. Scott believed that witch hunting was irrational, and not Christian. So in this book, he exposes the secrets of illusion to show that those who profess to have supernatural power are just tricksters and not agents of Satan. This thesis did not sit well with King James, who had all available copies of the book burned. But of course, this did not prevent further publication. 1634, we have Hocus Pocus Jr., a popular magic textbook. There are those cups again. 1792, the publication of the first magician's periodical. The 19th century, Professor Hoffman's Modern Magic Trilogy. The early 20th century, the Tarbell Correspondence Course of Magic. And well into the 20th century, numerous magicians' textbooks from the beginner to professional level. This is the very first magic book that I purchased at the age of 9 through the mail when I responded to an advertisement on a bubblegum wrapper. And of course, there's a proliferation of mail order catalogs and storefront magic shops where enthusiastic amateurs can purchase boxes and gadgets and trick cards of all kinds. Now, concurrent with this flood of information, magic shows themselves underwent dramatic change. For many years, magicians were rather disreputable, as we saw in this painting by Bosch. In the public's mind, they were often associated with mountebanks, medicine show operators, and other dodgy characters. This began to change in the mid-19th century through the innovations of Jean-Eugène Robert-Houdin, who conceived of magic as a sophisticated theatrical entertainment. He would perform in evening dress, which was new, and he would deliver high-tone presentations. Here, Robert Houdin performs his ethereal suspension, a great example of a showman exploiting a controversial topic, which was the development of ether as both an anesthetic and a recreational drug. He would bring his young son on stage. The boy would appear to take a generous huff of the mysterious new substance, and he would become lighter than air. Robert Houdin inspired others to develop big production stage illusions, and many theatrical magic shows were on tour by the turn of the century. And this is when we begin to see magic's version of industrial spying, with stage magicians attempting to acquire each other's illusions through any means necessary. Harry Keller did not have this levitation illusion in his act until he stole it from its inventor, John Neville Maskelyne. By one account, Keller disrupted Maskelyne's performance of this trick, publicly leaping on stage so that he could examine the levitation mechanism. Now, along with developments in stage illusions, there also were advances made in what's called close-up magic. That would be sleight-of-hand with cards, coins, dice, other small objects. And these artists could be hired by the well-to-do to perform at their parties or salons, or they could become buskers performing on city sidewalks, often with the object of drawing a crowd so they could pitch a product that they wanted to sell. And this concept was carried over to 20th century industrial trade shows, where companies would hire close-up magicians to perform in their booths, draw a crowd, and deliver the company's message. I made my living primarily as a close-up magician, very often doing this kind of thing. I'm going to play a clip of an appearance I made on Japanese national television in 1988. The man on the left is Max Maven, who was an American mentalist performing frequently in Japan at the time. The co-host on the right is a young pop musician, and I do not know the language, so I say very little.
Well, this is something, you can tell her it's a science experiment.
これは実験です。
実験。
Oh, yeah. We're going to cause matter to pass through other matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
アメリカのコインです。ハーフドル。50セントです。3枚ですね。
3枚。
You can hear inside.
小さい箱。
Yeah.
で、箱の上に。
Put on the cup. Okay. Listen.
Okay, so how does this stuff work? Well, magicians study psychology, and perception and the laws of cause and effect, and then they develop techniques to make it appear they can defy those laws. And to do that, they learn to control the delivery of information. If I were to take a coin and do this, the illusion works because I limit the information I'm giving you within a certain window. The mechanics of the sleight of hand happen outside the window frame. Let's have a much more clear example. We need a volunteer from the audience. Sarah? Let's get Sarah up here. Our president, ladies and gentlemen, Sarah Brunelle. Thanks for doing this. Sarah, we really didn't prearrange anything other than...
No, we really didn't.
Okay, that's good. All right, so you don't know what's about to happen.
No, I do not.
That's great, okay. All right, so let me ask you this. Have you been hypnotized before?
Once.
Really? Oh, okay. Well, no, this is good. This is, it makes it even better. So this is great. All right, so here's what's going to happen. I have a coin. I'm going to pass it back and forth in front of your eyes. I will count to three. By the time I reach the count of three, I'd like your eyes to be completely closed. Here goes. 1, 2, 3. Close your eyes. You are now in a deep hypnotic trance. Do you feel sleepy?
Yes.
You do? It's okay. Now, soon because of her condition, she'll be seeing things disappear, even though all of you will know exactly what's going on. So, okay, you can open your eyes. Okay, Sarah, I have a piece of paper and it's going to disappear. I'm going to put it in my hand and snap my fingers like that. And it's gone. It's good, huh? We'll do it again. I put the paper in the hand. Did you see it go? It's still there. No, it's when I snap like that it disappears. Yeah. I'll show you how it's done. All right. And when I put the paper in the hand, I make this quick motion to the side. Let me show it that way a second. While you're looking there, I sneak the paper over here in my pocket. I do it. No, for real. We'll do it again. Paper goes in the hand. It's gone. And here it is in my pocket. So now you know how it works. You're able to follow it every time. The paper goes in the hand. It's gone. And it's... Oh, I lost that one.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's okay. Can't miss this one.
Right.
In fact, I might have trouble making it disappear because it's so big. We'll try again. Go ahead. Go. But when I snap my fingers, your deep hypnotic trance will be lifted.
Oh,
1, 2, 3. How do you feel?
Marvelous.
Refreshed, right?
I do.
Would you stand up, please?
Yes.
Take a look behind you. Give her a round of applause. All right. Now, of course, she saw only what was in front of her. You were seeing what happens outside of the window frame. Additionally, I controlled her focus with my eyes and my hands. She looked where I was looking and where I gestured. And that, of course, is misdirection. The use of eye contact and body language are key techniques in misdirection. Also, I suggested I was concealing the paper in my pocket, so now my clothing becomes misdirection. The nonsense about hypnosis is misdirection. And when you build layers of misdirection, it becomes easy to point people away from what's really happening. Now, misdirection can be small scale and subtle, or it can be extremely broad. I think most of us recognize these fellows, Penn and Teller. During the summer of 1975, I attended a magician's convention in Philadelphia, and on the bill were a then unknown Penn and Teller. At the time, they were part of a three-man group called the Asparagus Valley Cultural Society. Now, the hotel had a wonderful old theater, full stage, 2 opera boxes at the upper right and left. And at one point during their performance, Penn told all of us that he was going to take a boy from the audience and change him into a rabbit. But he wasn't going to put him in a box or cover him with a cloak or any of the other usual magic bits. This would happen before our very eyes. So a boy came on stage, he took a seat, and just as he sat down, a siren went off. And there was a horrible crashing, and we all turned to see where the noise was coming from. And in the upper right box, a man in a gorilla suit was running the siren and banging two metal garbage can lids together. And when we looked back at the stage, the boy was gone, and in his place was a rabbit. So even a room full of magicians can be fooled if the misdirection is loud and outrageous. Additionally, magicians make use of story and spectacle. Trickery in Las Vegas, illusions with big cats, David Copperfield making the Statue of Liberty disappear, Chris Angel suspended in a glass water tank for 24 hours in Times Square. All of these performers use a bit of story as a hook, but the spectacle is the point. And then there are performers like Derek Delgadio, who performs wonderful sleight of hand and illusions trained by philosophy and autobiographical storytelling. In my case, I ended up going all the way into stories and fake lectures. But of course, you can tell a story without saying a word. One of my favorite old-time performers went by the name Cardini, and he performed absolutely brilliant sleight of hand, especially the classic bit of pulling playing cards out of the air. But he performed in character, silently. He would walk on stage as if he were a gentleman walking into a private club, but having had a couple of drinks, so he's tipsy and confused, and the magic is happening to him. This is a clip of Cardini performing on television in 1957, hence the quality of the video. At this point, he'd been doing the act for 35 years. Now, at one point, I was very interested in this silent storytelling, and I wanted to move beyond cards and coins. So I began watching clips of the early TV comic Ernie Kovacs, who created wonderful silent gags. Here Kovacs is portraying Eugene, one of his most famous characters. I began to wonder if I could create this kind of magic live on stage. So I began building theater pieces that were not traditional magic. They were more like live-action surrealist movies. One of these pieces, the scene opens with me staring at a fast food bag from which emerges a rubber fish. I subdue the fish, and in its mouth I find a key, which is fortunate because I'm chained to the table. So I unlock myself, I carry the fish over to a box from which I remove a mounting board. I mount the fish, I return to the table, the same creature reemerges. I subdue the fish, I find the key, I'm chained to the table again. I carry the fish over to the box, the mounting board is empty. I remount the fish, I go back to the table, the creature reemerges. End of scene, blackout. This work was of no interest to my trade show clients. So this sort of thing became my art project on the side while I continued with cards and coins to make a living. Let's have another demonstration. I will need another volunteer from the audience. Let's see. No? Is that a yes? All right, come on up here. Give her a round of applause, please. Oh, you're very excited. What's your name?
Karen.
Karen. John. Thank you. Yeah. Let's step right here. Okay. And, okay, that's good. Face me, please. Okay, 1 second. Okay, wait.
Oh, they're not going to be, it's not going to be on microphones, is it?
Oh, not to worry.
Okay.
All right. So, Karen, let me ask you this. Are you a Salisbury resident?
No.
Oh, you are not?
No.
Okay, where do you live?
Monterey.
Monterey. And how long have you been there?
30.
Okay. Do you know much about Salisbury?
No.
There's a great president with a light heart.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? Yeah. And in Lakeville, there's this place called Fern. My wife and I go there often, and that's also a good option. All right. Now, Karen, let's see, that's a good place to put this. I'm just going to balance it down here. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, Karen, over here, I have 3 vintage record album covers. Music from One Step Beyond. Jackie Gleason presents The Torch with the Blue Flame. And Bongo Party with Les Baxter. Oh, you're excited already. This is good. I am going to display these albums just so. All right. Oh. Oh. There we go. All right. What I'd like you to do is to walk over there and pick up 2 of those albums. That's okay. Let it go. All right. All right, and hand me one of them.
You want to see?
Yeah, just hand it to me. Terrific. Karen has selected Bongo Party with Les Baxter. Yes, you can place that down on the floor as well. Now, Karen, let me ask you this. Are you a musician?
Not really.
Oh, all right, so you have no particular affinity to bongos. Is there a strain of beatnik-ism in your family?
Yeah.
Oh, this explains everything. Well, hold that a second, would you? Because before you made your selection, this is what I wrote. Give her a round of applause. Thank you, Karen. How did I know you would choose Bongo Party with Les Baxter? Well, when you came on stage, I took your photograph and I immediately sent it to the Connecticut Regional Operations Intelligence Center. They gather information not only from government sources, but the private sector as well, promoting information sharing at the federal level between the CIA, the FBI, the military, state, and local government. After identifying you through facial recognition software, they sent your name and address to the National Security Agency. They poured over your old Facebook post, your medical records, your high school transcripts, even your 10th grade biology report on carnivorous plants. Your profile was quickly built, and it does indicate that you are a low security risk. It also contained an outline of your aesthetic taste, including your affinity to retro culture. So when that profile came back down the pipe to me, I ran it through a bit of software of my own design, which helped determine which of the 3 albums you would choose. So seconds after I took your photograph, this appeared on my screen. And even though none of that may be true, I think it's more believable than trying to tell you that I can read your mind or predict the future, which is usually what someone doing this sort of thing will try to tell you. This is Uri Geller, who managed to convince much of the public that he was a genuine psychic. He was a phenomenon during the 70s. You might remember the spoon bending. Geller's story was that he was the real thing, no trickery. Even though back in Israel as a young man, he had a conventional magic act. So, magicians were able to duplicate every one of his stunts. This man, James Randi, revived his own career with demonstrations that debunked Geller. And one of Geller's big fiascos was the appearance on the Johnny Carson show, because Carson had been coached by Randy on how to prevent trickery. Every one of Geller's attempts that night failed. But this did not dissuade people from buying Geller's story. He was charismatic, he was a natural on television, he never broke character, and he spoke to that need to believe that many of us have. I've often been grateful that he never went into politics or opened his own church. But Geller did inspire some magicians to drop the trickster image and go for a more serious persona. When I lived in Chicago, I became friends with this man, Tony Endruzzi. And Tony was a great proponent of what's called bizarre magic. That would be illusions with dark, theatrical, occult trappings. No card tricks, no coin tricks. Tony felt he was going for high art. And every year, Tony would hold the Invocational. This was a convention devoted to like-minded performers. At the Invocational, you might see Max Maven, who was America's foremost mentalist at the time, and Eugene Berger, who had written a historical study about American fraudulent mediums. So if you wanted to learn how to stage a truly convincing seance, you would talk to these guys. Now, at one of the Invocationals, there was a seminar held on the topic of how far should we go? What is the ethical line, if any, we should not cross in persuading people to believe we are the real thing? And during this very lively discussion, a young man from New York City stood up, and word was already out that this fellow had opened a storefront church in the city and was passing himself off as a spiritualist minister. And this man said to us, "I'm here today to tell all of you that what I do is genuine. And I'm attending this conference only to find out what all you frauds and charlatans are up to." And everyone in the room burst out laughing. But history's great exemplar of story, spectacle, and persona was Harry Houdini. Houdini began as a fairground magician, the king of cards. But he quickly learned that audiences were really jazzed by his escapes from chains, locked trunks, straitjackets. And so he rebranded himself as the man no earthly bond could hold. There's a tale still told about Houdini that during the winter of 1906, he announced that he would escape from handcuffs while underwater after diving into the Detroit River. But on the day of the event, the Detroit River was frozen over. Houdini shrugged, he had a hole cut in the ice, he was handcuffed, and he dove in. Many minutes later, long after the audience had to assume Houdini had been swept away and drowned, miraculously he emerged, shivering but alive. It was later revealed that Houdini had escaped from the handcuffs quickly, but he had been carried away from the hole in the ice by the river's current. And he managed to survive by breathing from air pockets trapped between the water and the ice until he clawed his way back to the hole. This story became a legend. Even though the historical record shows that the Detroit River was not frozen that day. So, how did this story pick up steam? Well, back then, news was not accessed by everyone at once. It was handed off from city to city. So it appears this story was jacked up and embellished as it left Detroit and moved around to various city newspapers like a game of telephone. Until it got back to Houdini in Detroit, who said, "Excellent." Embraced it and promoted it until it became history. And a scene in a ridiculous biopic starring Tony Curtis. But this kind of lifelong career storytelling is not possible today because the internet and social media have transformed information delivery. If Houdini were alive and performing now, some would say the Detroit story was nonsense. Others would insist it was true. Some would swear that Houdini was an agent of the deep state, or it was fake news, or generated by AI, or a sign of the second coming. Like a room full of bad magicians all trying to misdirect us at the same time. So there's a way in which Penn and Teller back in 1975 anticipated our current condition when they demonstrated how easily we are misdirected by noise from loud, outrageous people. But that's a topic for a much different lecture, so To close, let's imagine we're in a town like Salisbury, but long before all the current craziness. Everyone's excited that a traveling show has come to town featuring a fellow like this one. And he might present to us a set of rings that are traditional magic, nearly as old as the cups and balls. It involves 8 rings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is already linked and shouldn't be. There we go. 6, 7, 8. All right, for one last magic, we need one last volunteer. Let's get one of the guys this time. Oh, why don't you come up, please? Thank you. Give her a round of applause, please. Thank you. What's your name?
Solomon, and I fooled you all. I'm non-binary.
Excellent. Would you step over here, please? All right, I'm going to give you 2 rings. All right, I'll take 2. The object is to link them together to make a chain. All right, so it's something like this. Give it a try.
I don't think I'll be able to do it.
Try it anyway. Try it. No, here, I'll tell you what. You take these. I'll take those. Sometimes it's easier to pull them apart than to put them together. Right. And the object is to link them together to make a chain. All right, it's a really easy movement like this. Here, I'll tell you what. I'll take those. All right. Here we go. 3 at once. There, you have more to work with. Here, put them in a straight line. Yeah, now go from top to bottom like this. Just reverse them. See if that works. No? Okay, here. Nice display. That was good. I'll tell you what, you take these, squeeze them hard. A little harder, squeeze them. Let go of one. You finally did it. Give her a round of applause. Watch the rings as they pass through one another. Like wisps of smoke they are. How does it work? It's magic. Once you get the knack, you can make designs. A swing. A globe. Bad minimalist art. You can make longer chains. Peter?
And lastly, we can make the longest chain of all, which is a length.
This concludes our presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, now comes the real show.
So the first one you did with the cards. Okay, I was at Magic Castles. My brain still hurts.
That's a good thing.
That's what you think. So how could you, I know you can't tell me, but I don't understand.
What, the card going to the pocket?
Well, how do you have, because first of all, I watched you do it, but how you got his card in your pocket when he's still in the deck?
How I got the card in the pocket when?
It was still in the deck of cards.
I practiced really hard. I don't know. It's a wonderful routine. It's not original with me. If there were magicians in the audience, they might recognize it, but it's a classic. The inventor was a man named Francis Carlyle, and he was a wonderful card magician in the early 20th century. And once in a while, you will see a magician do it, and you know that he's read the literature. You know when you see that. Is there another question? Oh yeah, hi.
With the advent of AI, we see all kinds of things that seem pretty impossible. What effect do you think that's going to have on magicians and magic shows?
Oh, it's going to ruin everything. No, this is very interesting because I was telling friends about a year ago that I didn't think anyone would believe photographic evidence inside of a year. And it's not just photographic evidence, it's video now. And it's actually going to get much better. The only thing I can hope is that if everybody distrusts whatever they see online, they'll see more live performances. But when magic first started getting on the web, already there were people doctoring the videos with very crude tools to do the. Friends of mine who had no working knowledge of magic would send me videos saying, "How did this guy do it?" And I let them hang, but I really wanted to say, "Well, you didn't notice he edited blah blah blah." At this point, so there was already a lot of that going on, and it's just going to get worse.
I've always thought about magic. I've always connected with Houdini. Maybe it was just being a kid and knowing the name, nothing else. Can you share some of the things that he did? Because he did, I believe, escape certain amazing predicaments. And how was a lot of that done?
Wow. That's a tall order, because Houdini not only did escapes, of course, he invented a lot of stage illusions. He was known for having made an elephant disappear in the middle of a circus ring. One interesting story about Houdini. I think a lot of magicians consider Houdini as more of a brilliant publicist and self-promoter than as an expert magician. He, as you saw in that tale at the end, he was great at seizing the best opportunity to keep his profile high, and he would morph his career. Later in his career, he became a spiritualist investigator. He would expose mediumistic fraud and so forth. So he was always doing something to keep his profile up. There is one story I like telling about Houdini. He would do a theatrical show. This is well over 100 years ago. And in a theatrical show, he would do a blend of magic and his escape demonstrations. And at one point, when he was about to perform an escape, he would have men come up to the audience and tie him with ropes, or perhaps chains, or even handcuffs. And a screen would be set around him, so the audience was not privy to his escape methodology. And then the audience would wait for Houdini to emerge from behind the screen free of restraint. They would wait 5, 10, 15, 25 minutes. In fact, Houdini would escape from the restraints quickly, and he would make the audience wait. He'd sit back there and read a newspaper. And this was because audiences back then were starved for spectacle. There was no television. There weren't even, movies were in their infancy. And today we're deluged by spectacle. And we can have the spectacle of our choice by just pulling a phone out of our pocket. So we don't need to wait for the man to emerge from behind the screen. And that's something that's radically changed. Yes?
There was something, and I don't think I'm giving any a secret away because I think it was on YouTube, about how David Copperfield made the Statue of Liberty disappear.
Okay.
Can you tell it was about rotating the audience, and they didn't realize that?
You know, this is very interesting. Copperfield did a great deal to popularize magic during the 1980s. He's kind of a problematic figure in magic, which we'll get to in a second. But I was actually at a magic convention where someone had a frame-by-frame breakdown of how this was done. It was explained, and frankly, I don't remember all the detail. I do remember that the effect was much better in the retelling from layperson to layperson, like that story about Houdini, right? So months after Copperfield did this on television, people were describing the event who had not seen it, but they were saying, oh my God, it just disappeared or floated into the air or something like that. And this is what he wanted, right? The basic effect that he pulled on TV, it was interesting, but he wanted the big story in the retelling later, and that's really what he was aiming at. I think the next year, on his next magic special, he recovered a lost ship from the Bermuda Triangle. And I remember watching this with a group of magicians, and there's this ship, its prow coming to the audience, and there's Copperfield, right at the prow, and I'm going, okay, he can open a church now, okay, fine. One thing about Copperfield is interesting in that he's made it a life project to be the sole owner of the world's largest private collection of rare magic props and paraphernalia. And because he's a wealthy collector, he's able to buy other large, rare magic collections. And so now this rare mega collection of magic is largely inaccessible to the general magic community. And that's why, one reason he's a problematic figure. And he's also known to be litigious, so we probably shouldn't say anything further about it. Yes?
I have a question for Sarah. Sarah, were you actually hypnotized?
What, in my life? Or
No,
on
no,
stage
just then.
No, I don't think so. I don't know.
Could you have done that trick without doing the hypnotism part?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, the hypnotism is just, I do that to get a mild laugh from the audience because I know it's silly. But the subject is going to wonder what the heck is going on, right? So you've got to give them some leeway about, how do I explain this? Magic works because people imagine that there are several different ways that it could have been done, even though they can't really figure it out. Now, had I done that without the hypnotic routine, and I was just wearing a bathing suit, she'd be much more likely to stand up and look behind her, right? Because it would have been freaking impossible for me to have done it any other way than to toss them over her head, right? So you've got to wrap this nonsense around magic. If I got up at the beginning of the show and said, look, here's a Coke bottle and a pencil. Wow, look at that. Okay, everybody would go, okay, that's amusing. But you wrap it around this nonsense about nanotechnology and everything like that, and then they get sucked into the whole thing.
One thing I'll say is because what the coin thing did for me was it absolutely narrowed my field of vision.
Okay.
That's definitely what it did. I no longer saw the audience and I didn't really see anything there because your hands were there when the coin was.
Yeah.
So that's the effect it had on me.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I like to take credit for that, but...
To your point about where you really hypnotized, no,
Yeah.
it definitely did something.
Okay, I'll remember that. All right, thank you.
Yes. I just had sorry. I'm over here.
Oh, hi.
Hi. Sorry.
The lights.
Different. I just wanted to ask about your experience with that first magic book and what it was like to. Did you learn your first magic trick from that book, or did you have somebody who in your life like really inspired you? And when do you remember like practicing it for the first time and making something your own, as opposed to sort of doing a trick that was done, like maybe somebody let you in on how theirs had worked?
Oh, this is interesting. That magic book actually was a collection of various things pulled from old magic magazines. So some editor had found stuff that was rare or out of print and so forth, and it collated the material. I didn't know that as a 9-year-old. I just saw all these, bizarre tricks. The interesting thing about the book was that there was a small section in the back that had pretty good directions in basic sleight of hand with cards and coins. And that sucked me in immediately. There are a number of ways of compelling people to select a particular card. All right, it's called a force. And there are scores of methods of doing it. There was a way of forcing a card in that book, and at the age of 9, I learned how to do it. And I still use it. I still perform with it. I still use that force. I'm not going to show it to you because you'll know I'm forcing the card on you. but it was interesting. Even at an early age, I loved going to magic shops and buying the toys and the props and the gimmicks and all of that, but I was really interested in the manipulative stuff. And I became a boy magician who would, work at birthday parties for $5 in 1965. And I dropped magic completely during my teen years because I was a teenager and it was the late 60s. And I picked it up again in my early 20s, but I also, at that time, I already had basic sleight of hand technique. So once I decided to get serious, I moved on very quickly. And to your second point, that's when I started meeting people who already knew what the hell they were doing. And you would go to a magic club, and if people like that saw you were serious, they would take you aside and say, here, let me show you this, or that was pretty good, but you're doing it wrong. You've got to unlearn it and do it this way. And one of those people was Paul Gertner, who did the cups and balls at the beginning. So this was in the early 70s in Pittsburgh. I originally was in Pittsburgh, and Paul was in Pittsburgh. And we got to be friends, and Paul wasn't exactly a mentor, but I could always go to him and say, look, I got this idea, or what do you think of this, and all of that. And I would not have had any kind of career were it not for the later advocacy of Paul and Max Maven, the mentalist you saw in a couple of the slides there. Max was the one who brought me out to the West Coast to perform at the Magic Castle. So you can't do it entirely on your own. You can't do it all from YouTube clips or anything like that. Like any good craft, you need, a certain degree of mentorship and sponsorship.
I was just wondering, it seems like the history of magic is filled with men exclusively, it seems, and I'm wondering if it's becoming more diverse in the current day, or what do you think it is that would keep it more of a male-dominated craft or skill or talent or whatever?
Well, it should surprise no one that there is sexism in magic because it's dominated by men. There are a good many more female magicians performing today, I believe, even though I left magic for an extended period of time. There are many more female magicians now. It was kind of rare when I was performing, and this again was during the 70s and 80s. During the 80s, a woman named Lisa Mena came into prominence, and she started winning magic competitions. And I had good male magician friends who were pissed, who said, it's unfair. She's leveraging her femininity to sway the judges. And I always thought, good for her. Because a lot of magicians buy into this, and it's magic's own illusion that there is an objective quality to the performance of a magic routine that is separate from the performer's personality, race, gender. It's all interwoven, okay? You saw those pictures of me performing when I was in my 20s and 30s. Do you think for a second my looks had nothing to do with me winning awards? All right, yeah, you can't separate this stuff. Are there going to be more women? I hope so. There is a venue in Brooklyn called 69 Atlantic that has first-rate close-up artists performing on a regular basis. It's a great shop. There are, the front of it is handmade puzzles and novelties and so forth, but there's a secret door in the back, and it opens into a close-up magic theater gallery. And so for the price of an off-Broadway ticket, you can see first-class magic, and I've seen other programs, a number of them are women, and the next time I go there, I'll probably see a woman performing. How to get past the sexism? I don't know, it's like everything else. Yeah?
I'm not asking you how you do it.
Okay.
I'm not asking you how you do it. I'm asking you, what is a favorite trick that you perform now?
Oh, wow, that's interesting. I don't know that I have a favorite that I perform now, because I have a much more slender repertoire than I did when I was an active performer. I could do an hour of close-up magic easily. I cannot now. I think the favorite that you saw tonight was actually in the clip of me in Japan with the coins going through the deck of cards. And it's a favorite because, first of all, it's probably the most technically difficult, even though it's over in a few seconds, it's probably the most technically difficult thing that you saw tonight. And secondly, I used to fool magicians with it, which surprised me. The first time I did it, people went, what the hell? And I went, oh, that's good. So I never published it, and I only performed it a few times. And that's the only document of the thing. So I guess that's probably my favorite. I was very fond of the weirdo surrealist stuff that I built. And I did that when I was kind of segueing out of magic. And the interesting thing was that magicians got wind of it and started seeing the shows that I was doing. I was even performing under another name, because I wanted to separate, the magic from the weird stuff. And they found me, and they invited me to perform at the last invocational magic convention that I mentioned earlier. And I was shocked. Everybody really liked it. And I was doing stuff like you saw in the clip. I had one bit where through this elaborate scenario, I stapled my mouth shut to keep snakes from emerging from my mouth. And they went, oh, that's great. So it was the kind of stuff that went over well in performance art venues, which is where I ended up doing a lot of that, because that was the kind of playground that welcomed that kind of craziness. So yeah, I would say that coin trick in the video and some of the more surrealist stuff that I was doing were my favorites.
Can I have someone else?
Over here.
Quick question. What do you do when the trick goes wrong, or when the volunteer you bring up on stage derails or messes up the trick for you in some way? That must happen sometimes. What is your approach?
First of all, you're going to pretend it's part of the routine. No, actually, magicians consider this the real quality of a professional, how they work their way out of that situation, because eventually it's going to happen. I've never had a volunteer for the audience utterly mess with me. And that's because I tended not to use young high school students as volunteers. As I did tonight, I kind of gauge the audience. I see how they're talking to each other and all of that, and I try to target people. In Sarah's case, I approached her before the show because when we met, I saw she had a great laugh and all of that. I went, oh, she's perfect, so I approached her directly. If something goes wrong, you've got to go with it and pretend it's part of the show. Interestingly, I performed in a club once where, okay, I'm going to reveal how I did a trick, even though you're not seeing the trick. What I had to do at one point was to take this paper funnel. If you remember those old, what they called in high school, cootie catchers, the origami type thing you would hold. I would have a big one, all right? And I was doing fortune, and stuff would come out, appear out of it. And what was supposed to happen was that a flood of dimes was supposed to pour out at the end, okay? So the way, I had a plastic squeeze purse full of dimes up my sleeve, okay? And I have the big paper prop here. And so I hold this up, I bring my hand down, the plastic purse goes into my palm. I go into the paper, right, okay, fine. I do this one night, and I drop my hand, and the damn thing falls out of my sleeve and goes all the way to the floor. And I just walked over to the nearest table and I said, and these are for you. And I pretended it was just part of the act. And walked away. It was the only thing I could do. There were a lot of magicians in the audience, and I got really ragged about that. That was it. I think there was one more question. There was someone with the front. Yeah, hi.
It's kind of a question maybe not directed at magic specifically, but I've known a few magicians in my life, and they all seem to be highly intuitive people. And I wonder if you feel like you are a highly intuitive person, or your intuition plays into your gifts. Can you repeat what she asked?
She said that she has known a number of magicians, and she felt they were highly intuitive people, and she wondered if I considered myself intuitive, and if so, how did it work into my act? That's a very good question. If I were truly intuitive, there are some life choices I would not have made. I can tell you right now. However, as a performer, and this is not just as a magician, it's as a comedian or an actor or anyone in the performing profession, you develop sort of a sense of about how things are going. And you all know the term being on. When you're on, there's sort of a rhythm going on, and you can feel the flow. And sometimes you have to prompt it. I described it to someone once as finding the thread and drawing the thread in until you eventually get the big hole, you get the whole room. So that's sort of an intuition. I've known mentalists. This is crazy. I've known professional mentalists who are experts at something called cold reading. It's the closest thing to actual mind reading that a performer can do. A cold reader, a good one, will draw information from a subject and then repeat the information back, rephrase, so that it sounds like insight coming from the performer. And it becomes a dialogue, but you're basically telling the person what they want to know. And the more they acknowledge that you're onto something, the more information they're giving you. It's a brilliant technique. I actually was in a radio studio once, and I saw Max Maven in a call-in radio show do this over the telephone with someone on the other end. And I said to my friend Eugene Berger, oh my God, You know, no one else can do this. If you want to see great examples of cold reading, a movie came out a few years ago called Nightmare Alley. It's directed by Guillermo del Toro. And it's about a sideshow carnival mentalist who works his way up to being a society medium. And there were several demonstrations of cold reading in it. And it's a great movie. It's a bummer, but I would recommend it.
It might be a silly question, right?
Oh yeah.
Are you actually drinking out of that cup, or is that just a psychological tool to make us feel comfortable or kind of cozy?
You saw me drinking from the cup during the show, yes? Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, it's water. Thank you. No, actually, the one nervous habit that I never overcame as a performer was dry mouth. Okay, so after doing one show where I literally got cotton mouth and couldn't talk any further, I always had a cup of water handy. So that's why it's here.
Just curious, just like sports or music, which requires thousands and thousands of hours of practice. I mean, you can't just walk into a magic show, buy a trick, and go expect the next day to just do it beautifully. I mean, and just surprise everybody. I mean, how much practice is involved in this profession?
I would say to be a good sleight-of-hand artist, you have to practice as rigorously as you would if you were a piano student. You wanted to be a real pianist. You would have to do it every day. You would have to learn to do it right. You would have to have good pedagogy, an instructor or a mentor for a while. It's a serious craft. You can go into a magic shop and pick up some gadgets and fool your friends and impress your dates and so forth, but learning the craft is something else. I'll leave you with this. If you want to look at something really crazy, I'm sure it's on the web because it's been public domain for a long time. There is a classic text about sleight of hand with cards called The Expert of the Card Table. It was written at the turn of the century by apparently a professional card cheat who wrote under a pseudonym, and it's profusely illustrated with etchings, and it shows you how to deal from the bottom of the deck. It shows you second dealing, how to switch out a complete deck in the middle of a poker game. It is the Bible for any serious student of card magic. I've known guys who quote passages from this as if it were the Bible. So if you're curious, try to look up this book and see some of the stuff that people today are indulging in spending hundreds and hundreds of hours perfecting. Also, by the way, if you want to see a great execution of this stuff, Derek Delgadio, who I mentioned earlier, has a program documenting his show in and of itself, which he performed in New York a number of times. It's on Hulu, it streams. There's wonderful original magic, there's wonderful storytelling, and he does some brilliant gambling sleight of hand with cards in the middle section, and it's some of the best you'll ever see. So boot up Hulu and look for the show, and you'll be very impressed.
Before you all leave, a couple of things just before you all leave. Before you leave, hold on. Just to say, make a note of our next forum, which is on March 27th. It will be at the Housatonic Regional Valley High School, and it is the author of Revolution Song, Russell Shorto, in conversation with Rhoda McCrisky and Peter Vermillier. And this is a partnership between Salisbury Forum, the Salisbury Association, the Troutbeck Symposium, and the Scoville Memorial Library, and it's in connection with the Salisbury Commemoration 250 and CT 250. So that's going to be a great event, so put that in your diary. If you enjoyed it tonight, thank you very much again for being here. Please consider supporting us both by coming along and also by your very kind donations that you can make via the QR code in the programme or via the envelopes in the lobby. So thank you, have a great evening. Thanks for being here.